Hi, I'm Lindsey.
And I'm Connor.
And this is Chat with the Rabbits. You know what? You won't write a song, and so now I just have to talk. I just have to start talking.
No,
you make something out of
I'm
nothing.
really happy. Lindsey's been having a tough diabetes day, and I think she's been a little down today, and I've been worried about her. You know, there's not been a lot of jovial joking today. This is the most I've seen, so it's been a bit of a left turn here and that.
Sorry. He's gotten mostly angry rants today. Well, I don't understand. One file. Been stomping around a lot. How are you guys doing? I hope you're doing very well. How are you doing, Connor?
I'm doing okay. You've been with me all day, so you know exactly how I'm doing.
I don't. You're very stoic.
Am I?
So I usually try to tell myself he's fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
Do you end up believing that?
You could have the worst day of your life, and I think this is how you would handle it. Oh, well, okay. That's as angry as I've ever seen that man.
Not to get too personal on the pod right away, but my sister did pass away a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And I cried that day, obviously, but a lot of that day was, okay, what do we got to do? I got to get to my hometown. I got to get to the funeral. I'm going to send flowers to my parents before then. Like it's a lot of planning.
Yeah. You shed one tear and then it was down to business.
Because
that's Connor Angus.
Crying's not going to do anything. You gotta move. You gotta
see
move
what
forward.
I'm working with here? Crying's not going to do anything. That's some farmer blood in you. Well, do you have any idea what we will be discussing today?
And you haven't even given me a hint, which you normally do.
I haven't. This is somewhere I think, we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong. I've never been wrong before, but it's never too late to start something new. I think this will be somewhere between A Girlfriend Explains and a chat, like a fireside chat with us. I think we're going to be in this weird little middle ground, but let's see.
Okay.
Let's see how much explaining I actually end up doing. So this topic was actually suggested by Avi. I want to send a huge thank you today. We will be discussing the bad art friend debacle that happened several years ago.
Bad art friend?
That is the face I made when I saw this in our suggestion box. And I said, what is that? And I Googled it, and instantly it lit up the tingle of opinion soup that lives forever and always in my stomach. I had so much to say about this debacle.
Which... before that, shout out to our suggestion box. We have a suggestion box in the description that anybody can write suggestions, and you don't even have to be subscribed to us if you don't want to be.
No.
To make a suggestion. It's
you
just
can
open.
Hate us. You can still suggest
totally
something.
hate us. So this comes from Avi on the suggestion box.
Yes, thank you. This really lit me up.
Okay.
Thank you. I've never heard of this before, so let's get into it. So the story at the heart of our discussion today is so hot. I don't think that's the right word for it, which is ironic because we'll be discussing two writers today.
Okay.
I simultaneously agree and disagree with both women at the heart of this, and I see myself in both of them.
Okay.
So I'll be crystal clear at the jump, just right now. Everyone is wrong, and I wear no band t-shirts for anyone mentioned heretofore.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about our characters first and foremost.
Okay.
Okay, also, huge disclaimer, I'm pulling a lot of this information from a New York Times article by Robert Kolker. He did a really great investigative, deep dive into the situation. So I'm pulling a lot of quotes, a lot of information from that article. Obviously, it's going to be linked down below if you want to read it and check it out. But I didn't interview Dawn Dorland or anybody else involved in this.
Copy that.
Fiasco. Okay.
Copy that.
So let's talk about Dawn Dorland, our first character.
Okay.
Here's a quote from the New York Times article. Dorland is not shy about explaining how her past has afforded her a degree of moral clarity that others might not come by so easily. She was raised in near poverty in rural Iowa. Her parents moved around a lot, she told me, and the whole family lived under a stigma. One small consolation was the way her mother modeled a certain perverse self-reliance, rejecting the judgments of others. Another is how her turbulent youth has served as a wellspring for much of her writing. She made her way out of Iowa with a scholarship to Scripps College in California, followed by divinity school at Harvard. Unsure what to do next, she started working day jobs in advertising in Boston while dabbling in workshops at the Grub Street Writing Center. When she noticed classmates cooing over Marilyn Robinson's novel Housekeeping. Let's pause for a second. Have you heard of this book?
No, I haven't.
Me neither. Have you guys heard of this book? Do you guys like this book? What is this book?
I don't even know that author.
I should have Googled it, but it didn't occur to me to Google it until just now. Shall I read Housekeeping? Anyway, Dawn picked up a copy of this book, and after inhaling its story of an eccentric small-town upbringing told with sensitive, all-seeing narration, she knew she wanted to become a writer. End quote. So that's kind of Dawn. Just a little bit of backstory, a little bit of where she is now, a little bit of her spirit.
Sounds like a normal person.
Something that is stuck out to me a little bit is this phrasing, near poverty. She was raised in near poverty in rural Iowa.
Right.
There was a follow-up to this article in The Atlantic written by a different journalist who said the same thing. She was like, she grew up kind of near poverty.
Near poverty.
I don't quite understand what that means.
I imagine that just means like no, because like
you're either in poverty or you are not in poverty, right?
Right. Because
in my experience, this is
well, and maybe this is like, to me, like being in poverty means you're relying on a lot of state programs. You have to get a lot of like free food benefits, health benefits from the government, and they've got programs that are designed for people under a certain income bracket.
Dawn talks about that in like future bios and interviews where she mentions that like she was reliant on state programs, or like she received outside help from outside organizations.
Right.
So, but that's just some phrasing that I think is interesting. Near poverty. I'm not quite sure what that means. In my experience, you're either in poverty or you are not in poverty.
Right.
There's a pretty distinct line. So here's a little quote from the Atlantic article.
Okay.
She writes of a childhood tainted by abuse, trauma, and loneliness. In adulthood, Dawn Dorland's sense of loss or emptiness seems to manifest in an oceanic gentleness, a tentative and hopeful search for connection, for building bridges. But that level of need, which can register as wan and endearing, can also arrive as demanding and judgmental. And this is Sonia Larson's Dawn Dorland. Sonia Larson is our second character in this story today. We're going to talk about her more in a minute.
Okay.
For Sonia Larson, the problem with Dawn Dorland's persona is that her neediness asserts a burden on others. Because she is wounded, traumatized, searching for love and acceptance, others are implicitly obligated to supply affection and friendship, even if they're not exactly thrilled by the proposition. End quote.
Okay.
How's that sitting with you right off the bat?
I'm not totally sure yet. I want to hear more, obviously, but the thing that it's coming to my mind right now is I worked on a movie a couple of years ago. I won't say the name of this movie. It has been released. But it was a story. It was a movie written by a wealthy individual, and their family helped fund that movie. And I'm talking stupid wealthy, like billionaire wealthy.
Sure.
Right. And part of this was that the person in charge of this movie was raised in this billionaire household. And they wrote and directed this movie and were trying to star in it as well. And this person was so disconnected from the story that she had written, which was a story about people in poverty, people in very susceptible and very like bad places because of their lack of wealth and lack of money. This person was so disconnected from that lifestyle that they had to hire a poverty consultant to come onto the movie in order to look through the script, in order to talk to the actors about certain things. And I just remember feeling very gross about that, about a person whose job it is to tell rich people how to act impoverished.
To how to show poverty on screen. Also,
Right.
do you put that on a resume? I was the poverty consultant.
That's the thing. Like,
like, how does that work?
well, and you hear that with like the show Succession. They hired somebody who was a consultant for like the actors to be rich. What are the uber elite, right? Like, what are they like? They had to, this person would tell them, when you get out of a helicopter, don't duck, because you've been doing this since you were a child, right? So if you've been doing this since you were a child, you know exactly where the helicopter is. You don't need to duck like the rest of these people.
That's interesting.
People, right? And that's an interesting lifestyle, I think, because there are so few people who are billionaires, who have private jets and private helicopters, right? But the idea of a poverty consultant, it rings a bad chord in my heart. I don't like that. And I'm starting to maybe hear a little bit of the rumblings of that in the story, potentially. There's something that's striking that same kind of string within me. I don't know why. Yeah.
Yes, something that's ringing true in my ears, because just a reminder for the pod, I did go to theater school. I also went to a performing arts high school. I have spent most of my life and my career surrounded by creative people.
Yes.
And very creative people do tend to be more in touch with their emotion. They're more in touch with their body. They're very, they can start up intimate relationships with people very quickly because they tend to be a little bit more open and a little bit more vocal, I would say, about what's going on with them, how they're feeling. That's just been my experience with creative populations. And something that's really hitting for me is this quote, oceanic gentleness, and like a tentative search and a hopeful search for connection. That feels very theater school to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, in all of my research on Dawn Dorland specifically, she has like the true spirit of an artist.
Sure.
Like very open-minded. You run to these people at like residencies, right? Like they're very classically just like they are looking for connection. They use their art as a way to connect with other people, to search for meaning. I don't think it's a coincidence that she went to Harvard Divinity School. I think Dawn is very spiritual, although I couldn't find more information about that. But that's like the first character that we're kind of dealing with. Just like I thought these two articles did a really great job of painting a pretty complex person.
It sounds like it's someone who grew up in a very rough environment starting out and became very open to the world as a result.
Yes.
And it sounds like was late to their own artistic. It sounds like she was kind of late coming to her own artistic soul. It sounds, right?
She went like a very non-traditional route where she's just like kind of a pinball. She's like, I'm going to go over here and then I'll do this until it doesn't please me anymore. And that's very free-spirited. That's like really, again, the heart of an artist is just kind of going where you feel compelled to be.
Right.
So that's Dawn Dorland. Let's cut to June 24th, 2015. Dawn donated one of her kidneys in what is called a non-directed donation. Are you familiar with non-directed donations?
No. Like, geez, what an escalation. Okay.
Non-directed donations are when you donate your kidney or an organ, but I don't think there's any other organ that you can donate and still be alive. So it's your organ, it's your kidney. You donate your kidney to a stranger. It's not usually, I think when I've heard of kidney donations, it's like I'm giving it to my daughter, I'm giving it to my sister. This is just, I have a kidney, I only need to live with one, and you can take the other one and give it to somebody who really needs it. That's a non-directed donation.
That's crazy. So just voluntarily giving up a kidney to a stranger that you do not know.
A total stranger. Yeah. And as the surgery got closer and closer, she started to share her story with others. Here's another quote. She started a private Facebook group inviting family and friends, including some fellow writers from Grub Street, the Boston Writing Center, where Dawn spent many years learning her craft. And after her surgery, she posted something to her group, a heartfelt letter she'd written to the final recipient, whoever they may be. And here's what Dawn's letter said. Personally, my childhood was marked by trauma and abuse. I didn't have the opportunity to form secure attachments with my family of origin. A positive outcome of my early life is empathy, that it opened a well of possibility between me and strangers. While perhaps many more people would be motivated to donate an organ to a friend or family member in need, to me, the suffering of strangers is just as real. Throughout my preparation for becoming a donor, I focused a majority of my mental energy on imagining and celebrating you. End quote. This letter to the imagined recipient, because at this point she doesn't know who her kidney is going to go to. That decision is totally out of her hands. The doctors handle that. She's not like, you.
Right.
You will be receiving my organ. It's totally out of her hands. This letter writing is recommended standard procedure for non-directed donations. It can provide a place for expression, like the fear, the grief, the excitement coming up, like surrounding the surgery. And it's a very effective way to promote non-directed donations, which, of course, hospitals and medical professionals are all for.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. I mean, yeah, in the world, right, if we only ever need one kidney, but everybody is born with two, we have an excess of kidneys walking around that could be put theoretically put to good use, right? So yeah, I imagine, I don't know, you hear about hospitals always being short on important life-saving implants, they're transplants that could save people's lives. So yeah, I imagine anything they can do to encourage people to just give a vital organ to someone else in need without any strings attached is important to the entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right?
And these letters can function like twofold, I think, is like one, they serve as like advertising for non-directed donations.
Okay.
And that's the more cynical answer. But number two, I think it also helps, like, I'm undergoing serious surgery, having an organ of mine removed and put into someone else. And also living with one kidney is not without its complications. Like that's a whole new life, a whole new lifestyle that you need to adapt to. And that can be very nerve-wracking, and you can really start to get cold feet and the jitters. And I think writing this letter is probably a way to help focus on the good that you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, focus on the person whose life you're going to change. Write them a letter kind of thing.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because like you're right. It's a major elective surgery is something that is very easy to get freaked out about.
Oh.
You know? So I imagine the letter helps the person giving, the donor, to calm down a little bit and to recognize and to kind of reinforce, I am doing a good thing. I am doing a good thing.
Yes.
Like it's important.
Dude, I don't like giving blood.
No.
Can you imagine if I was going in for kidney surgery?
No, I can't.
I would be literally, okay, this is embarrassing. We were watching a show last night and somebody had to have their blood drawn. I don't even like talking about it because it freaks me out so much. but somebody had to have their blood drawn, and I buried my face in the couch and just started screaming random stuff. What did I say? I was like, Tom Hanks in a suit. He's walking on the moon.
On the moon, yeah.
He's still on the moon. The moon is happening and nothing else is.
Lindsey is not terrible. You're not scared of blood, but
I have mediated syncope,
yes.
and blood and needles are that's the ticket to Faintville for
me. They make you less than conscious, unfortunately. But yes, I think when it comes to medical stuff like that, it's important. I got freaked out going in for my teeth surgery.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Understandably so.
So yeah, I imagine this letter serves a lot of purposes, and one of them being it helps the person who's donating calm down a little bit, reinforce that they're doing a good thing. I also think like the romantic part of me, the person who believes in humanity, is like, you are now, as a donor, connected to the person whose life you're saving forever. Forever.
Yeah.
You've had that kidney your entire life, and now it is going to help somebody else. It will be in another person's body, helping them forever. Right?
Yeah.
I think about that with my missing teeth. I had my teeth my entire life, and they're gone.
Yeah.
And they're never coming back. You know, there is something about that that's really, I don't know, it's sad. It's like losing a finger.
I think it's perfectly normal to have a lot of emotion tied up in the body and like in its failings and the things that go wrong that you don't have control over and that you do have control over. Mm-hmm. So, but I saw some like later when we get into like the debacle of this whole debacle, because this is not even the debacle. This is just the prelude to the debacle. But I saw a lot of discourse surrounding this letter writing, and some people were like, I think that's kind of weird. Like, why did she post that? Why did she write that? And as far as I can tell, this is very standard procedure. This happens a lot with non-directed donations.
I mean, posting it publicly, I have some feelings
different.
About. Yeah.
But she considers herself a writer.
Sure.
And this is a major thing that's going on in her life. So I understand the impulse to want to share that.
Absolutely. And it could help other people recognize, like, maybe I should be a non-forced donor or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And from everything forward, like Dawn became a real face for non-directed donations. Like she became, like, I think she participated in some parade. Like she was like an ambassador for a certain company or pharmaceutical. I'm not sure like the exact terminology, but she became like a real vocal supporter of non-directed donations. And I think this was one of her ways of doing that. Sure. She was like, oh, this is my thing right now.
So just to give you a check-in on my meter.
Yeah.
Getting twinges of weirdness.
A little weird.
But nothing crazy. Like absolutely nothing that is vilifying or terrible.
No.
Like,
and we know crazy.
Yeah.
We know I'm crazy.
I'm getting like I think what it is, I'm getting a little aftertaste of like theater kid. Mm-hmm. Singing on the subway, theater kid.
I think that's fair.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
That is a fine thing to be.
It's not a crime.
Not a crime.
I do want to flick.
But there's a flavor.
There's a flavor.
There's a flavor that comes with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Okay, so Dawn did actually meet the recipient of her kidney.
Oh, wow, okay.
And paid him a visit and hung out with his family, which, as I understand it, is rather unusual.
I also understand that to be rather unusual.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, the family must have obviously been fine with it, and like, somehow they connected, but that's extremely unusual. But I have heard stories about the families of organ donors visiting recipients and hearing their loved one's heart beat again. Mm-hmm. I go down these rabbit holes sometimes to make myself weep, and those videos really get to me. Like somebody's young son dies randomly in a car accident, but his heart gets implanted into a girl who needs a new heart, and the parents come visit and they hear their son's heart beat again, and a new person. I'm getting chills. Like, it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. So I think in non-directed donations, this is unusual, but generally I don't think it's that crazy. Also, if someone gave me a kidney, I'd want to meet them personally.
I'd want to shake their hand.
I'd want to look at them and be like, wow.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
We're connected.
Now, I think there is a possibility for a weird dynamic that could come about from that of like, you kind of owe me, I saved your life.
It's really interesting that you say that.
Oh boy.
It's really, really interesting that you say that.
It seems like I've got a nose for whatever the drama's about to be.
You're very intuitive. This is why I like talking to you about stuff. But yeah, I wrote this down because I wrote, I would sob out of my nose if this happened to me. I can't even think about it. Don't do that to me, Connor Angus. We're both dying on the same day, 5 hours apart, like Thomas Jefferson and John Adams.
I know. The thing that makes me emotional, I think Nat Geo, I'll see if I can find a picture of it. There is sometimes hospitals, when they're doing donations from people who've been deceased, who've passed away, they will walk the body through the corridor of the hospital and do kind of like a final goodbye. Mm-hmm. And the nurses and all the staff kind of stand at like attention as the dead body is kind of wandered through, or is pushed through the corridor.
It's a wonderful thing to be an organ donor
Yeah.
because you have no idea, like the people that you could help. Like
Exactly.
you're this is gross. And as somebody who faints of blood, I recognize this is gross. But they can take your corneas
Yeah.
and put them on other people.
Mhm.
And now they can see.
They can see again. Yeah.
What the-
I know. It's tough to talk about because it is a little squeamish.
It makes me crazy. It really does. So I won't go into too much detail, but the amount of good that you can do with that, there's nothing more honorable and more wonderful than that. Seriously.
I'm an organ donor on my license.
I am too.
I think it's very important because
Nobody wants it because I'm a type 1 diabetic, but
exactly, you'd have trouble.
but I'd offer.
Which, like, not to side tangent, you told me that you can't donate like bone marrow
Yes,
because
I
you're
can't.
diabetic, right?
Yeah. And so what happens, as far as I understand, is they would take out my bone marrow and implant it into somebody, and then that person would develop type 1 diabetes.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I'm glad we know that, obviously.
Yeah,
But
I won't give you my bone marrow.
yeah.
Well, if it's between that and death, I'm giving you type 1 diabetes. Once again,
That's
John
fine.
Adams and Thomas Jefferson.
But yes, I think there is something that is so human about giving yourself to someone else like that once you're gone. Because I'm a big believer in, like, we're just vessels passing through, you know, we inhabit the vessel that we're in. And once we're done with it, it doesn't matter. Use it. Plant a tree with my ashes. Like,
It makes no difference to me.
It makes no difference. Take whatever
I'm not
you
here
need,
anymore.
You know, we're just renting the place.
We are. So let's continue with this New York Times article.
Okay.
In time, Dawn Dorland would start posting outside of the private group to all of Facebook, celebrating her 1-year kidneyversary and appearing as a UCLA health laker for a day at the Staples Center to support live organ donation. End
Okay.
quote. You had a little spasm about that.
I made my face.
You did.
Again, nothing wrong with that. I think having a cause and being a champion of that cause, everybody needs a cause to champion as long as it's like a good cause. Being super public about a good thing that you did, you know what I mean? Starting to be like, I record myself every time I give food to people on the street.
Yes.
You know,
A little bit.
look at me giving $10,000 to this person living in a tent. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
Here's the thing. I think what you're bumping up against is the same thing that I'm bumping up against, which is the same thing that Sonia Larson, I think, was bumping up against.
Okay.
Which is giving your kidney to a stranger is such an altruistically great thing
hmm
that it's really difficult to argue against it. Even
Yeah.
if the person attached to the good deed is annoying or bad or doing it for selfish reasons or whatever, ultimately they did a really wonderful thing.
They did.
And that's really difficult to talk about. I think because we have this assumption that, like, if you do a good thing, that means you are good.
Right.
And that's not, I think we know that that's not true. People are much more nuanced than that. You can do great things and be a total bum.
You can be. I'm probably quoting something, I'm misquoting something, but I remember reading, I think, a paper about the idea that people will excuse their own behavior by doing one good thing. One good thing leads to 10 bad things.
And it's like, well, buddy, that one thing that you did does not erase everything else that you did. There's that great quote in the Royal Tenenbaums,
Oh, yeah.
not to immediately turn into a Wes Anderson fan, but there's this great quote. If you haven't seen the movie, it's about a dad who was not a good dad and
No.
all of his kids are estranged and he tries to connect with them like in the last season of his life. And at some point towards the end of the movie, he goes, God, can't you be a shit your whole life and then try to fix things up in the fourth quarter? And it's like, no, dude, you can try.
You can try.
But man, no, not really. This one good thing doesn't erase the like 50 years of shit that
Right.
you've laid down.
And doing one good thing doesn't give you a coupon to do bad things in the future.
No, it's
right?
not transactional.
No, everything
you know?
everything is its own thing.
Yes.
Everything is an island.
I want to talk about this kidneyversary thing a little bit because I think on the surface it looks a little weird and a little performative. And
Yes.
maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know Dawn Dorland personally. I'm not going to like assign her awful characteristics. But I have to bring up like the fact that a diaversary is a thing. So I have type 1 diabetes
Mhm.
and it's pretty standard practice to celebrate every year on the day that you got diagnosed. It's called a diaversary. And it can be whatever you want it to be. It can be like one year I got dressed up and we all went out to a nice restaurant and we got cake and it was a big thing. The next year I just got beer with a couple of friends. We had just started dating.
Yeah.
And I wasn't wearing a bra. It was very casual. And then this last year, I don't know if we did anything. Maybe we went out for tiramisu.
You and I went out.
Yes.
Yes.
We went out for tiramisu that night, and that was it. So it can look like however you want it to look, and it's just meant to be a reason to celebrate. It's a reason to kind of rejoice in I'm alive.
Yeah.
I survived the thing. I manage it every day. I'm doing okay. Let's keep it going, kind of thing.
Right.
it's a way to cope. So I don't think celebrating a kidneyversary and doing it publicly is actually strange. I can see 100% how it looks weird if you are not chronically ill or familiar with things like diaversaries and things like that.
The only thing I would push back on with that is that you did not voluntarily give yourself diabetes.
That is true.
You know what I mean?
That is true.
She signed up to give away her kidney.
Right.
Which again, a very noble act, a very selfless act. And that doesn't mean that she shouldn't be able to celebrate. But yes, ringing a little strange. There's something...
I see it.
There's something strange in the water here.
Yeah. I see it both ways. I do. I would feel like a hypocrite personally if I was like, you can't have a kidneyversary. That's my thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to knock her for that. She's lost a kidney. If you want to go out and have a nice dinner with your family and take a picture and post it on Facebook, girl, do it. You gave a kidney to a stranger. It's fine. Yeah. I actually don't care.
Same.
But let's see. Here's another quote.
Okay.
But just after the surgery, when she checked Facebook, Dawn Dorland noticed some people she'd invited into the Facebook group hadn't seemed to react to any of her posts. On July 20th, she wrote an email to one of them, a writer named Sonia Larson.
Okay, enter Sonia Larson.
So let's talk about Sonia Larson a little bit. Sonia Larson is a Chinese American woman. She's mixed race, and she grew up in a middle-class enclave in Minnesota, which was predominantly white and predominantly like middle class. And so growing up in that environment, mixed race really had an effect on her in a way that she probably didn't realize until she was younger or until she was older and she started writing. And now that is very much at the heart of what she writes about. She writes about racial dynamics, and she writes about, according to one of her friends, characters with giant blind spots, raging flaws that they just can't see. They've got blinders on, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Sonia Larson's path toward writing was much more conventional than Dawn's. She started earlier after her first creative writing class at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. When she graduated in 2005, she moved to Boston and walked into Grub Street to volunteer the very next day. Right away, she became one of a handful of people who kept the place running. In her fiction, Sonia Larson began exploring the sensitive subject matter that had always fascinated her, racial dynamics and people caught between cultures. End quote. And that is Sonia Larson.
Yeah.
So those are our two main women in the story today.
Yeah. Which on the surface both sound fine. They both sound delightful, like people I would hang out with.
Doing their thing, right? So Dawn and Sonia were around the same age and ran in the same literary circles in Boston and the surrounding area. And that's kind of how they crossed paths.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Whether or not they were actually friends is a little bit murkier. I think it seems more like they were colleagues, but things were friendly.
Sure.
You know,
I imagine the writing world in Boston, even though Boston's a big city, once you're in I mean, you and I know this with Los Angeles in the film world, once you're in a certain industry in a single place for long enough, you just kind of know of everybody, right?
Creative industries in particular, they tend to be very small. Yeah. I mean, this article even talks about like literary success in the literary world. It's teeny tiny. It's really funny. I've been to exactly one writer's residency, and already I'm seeing their names on lists. I'm seeing residencies that I'd never heard of before until that residency. Now they're popping up in my website. I'm like, this is a very tight-knit world, actually.
Yes.
So two professional writers living in Boston, going to Grub Street, they know each other.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the world a little bit. When it comes to literary success, the stakes can be pretty low. A fellowship, a residency here, a short story published there. Am I the Asshole podcast made points similar to this, and I do want to circle back around to that sentiment in a minute. Just mark it.
Okay. Putting a pin in it.
Yeah, here's a quote. But it seemed as if Larson was having the sort of writing life that Dawn Dorland once dreamed of having. After many years, Dawn, who was still teaching, had yet to be published. But to an extent that she once had a writing community, Grub Street was it. And Sonia Larson was, she believed, a close friend. End quote. So a little bit of time goes by. Dawn and Sonia attend AWP Conference, which stands for Association of Writers and Writing Programs. It's a nonprofit organization for writers. It happens every year. It's a little bit like our Comic-Con.
Sure.
But it's a little bit more dry, I imagine. It's more people with glasses on going, oh my, really? If I had to guess. Dawn and Sonia both went to AWP, but Dawn was not having a good time. Here's a quote from her. Here's a quote from Dawn. Barely anyone brought up what she had done, even though everyone must have known she'd done it. Here's Dawn. It was a little bit like if you've been at a funeral and nobody wanted to talk about it. It just was strange to me. I left that conference with this question. Do writers not care about my kidney donation? Which kind of confused me because I thought I was in a community of service-oriented people. End quote.
Here's that weirdness. That weirdness is starting to poke through.
Writers? No. I love them. I love us. All of my closest friends are writers. We are not in the service industry.
No.
That's stolen valor.
No.
You give that back to the hostesses. I mean, are you out of your mind? Come on. Get a grip. What is this? We're not Hermes. We're not taking notes from one god and passing it over to another. Like,
No.
and also, like, yeah, you're at the Association for Writers and Writers Programming. People are networking. They're seeing like what big magazine is coming out. They're talking to each other. They're reading short stories. They're buying books. No one's talking about your self-directed kidney donation. Of course not. You're not the keynote speaker.
Right.
It's not Dawn and her kidney writing program day.
Right. How my kidney donation informed my writing.
Yeah, then it would be weird that nobody's talking about your kidney donation. They're just like, well, look at the blue sky. Isn't that gorgeous? But we're at a writers' conference. Why would everybody be talking about your kidney donation?
How did nobody see my Facebook post about my kidney transplant?
Yeah. So June 24th, 2016,
Okay.
a Facebook friend commented on one of Dawn's posts. And it said, Sonia read a cool story about giving out a kidney. You came to my mind and I wondered if you were the source of inspiration. Unquote. And with that comment, the grog was unleashed.
Oh, no.
That friend knew what he was doing, by the way.
Really? You think so?
I'd know it. A little shit stirrer. There's no way you reach out to Dawn Dorland and you don't know that that's going to start a whole Middle Earth battle.
Right.
Come on.
Right. And so just to get my pieces straight here. So Dawn is a writer, but has not had anything published in a major way by this point.
I don't believe so, no.
Gotcha. And Sonia kind of has had a little bit more success writing.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the pieces are that Dawn is looking for some level of vindication, or not even vindication, but recognition for something.
Recognition and purpose. I understand. And we recorded a while ago an episode about comparison, and we kind of have it logged away for a rainy day.
Yeah, we do.
But we talked about it a little bit in that, where success is going to move, like traditional success, meaning like money, publishing, book deals, all this like fancy glimmery stuff. That's going to move in different speeds for different people.
Yes.
It actually doesn't have anything to do with just like pure writing talent or like pure networking or just like grit. It's kind of all of it and none of it. It's like luck and it's like dark matter. Like it's just connecting all of us and it's responsible for everything. And you just kind of have to write it out and just accept that like I'm on my path. I'm doing everything that I can. I can't get too distracted by what other people are doing and the success that they're having.
Right.
You know, but I could see how if you're submitting short stories for publication and you're getting rejected and you're submitting for residencies and you're getting rejected, but your community is getting accepted, how that would be very painful and how you might outsource the validation to something else.
Absolutely. I think it's a very natural A to B to C kind of progression based on what you've told me so far.
I ask you, like, I'll get emails being like, sorry, we don't really want you here. And I'll be like, do you like me?
Yeah.
I'll say, I need some validation right now.
No, you do. And I'm happy to give it to you because I think you and I are both in the artistic world. Like it's tough because
it's brutal.
There's no rhyme or reason for why some people break through the ceiling to the land of success.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's very obvious. Sometimes a person is so undeniable. It's like, well, yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And other times, the industry is filled with people who I think are either undeserving or I don't get it, like why they're able to find success. And you have to sit with your own failures and your own rejections every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how personal that feels.
And I think it's tough if you came into the industry or to creativity by non-traditional means.
Yes.
And you're sitting next to people who have MFAs and they were published in American short fiction and they sold this book or they got this deal or they have this manager from this huge agency. How you start playing that comparison game really quickly. I
mean, that's what I did when I first started because I dropped out of university. I don't have anything even close to a degree.
Your beauty school dropout.
Yeah. And so when I started working in the industry and I wanted to be a screenwriter, I got very insecure very quickly because I was working for people and I was looking at resumes for other people to be hired, and they had MFAs and residencies and all these things that I didn't have.
They're like, I know Scott Rudin, he's my uncle. And I also know Christopher Nolan, he's also my uncle.
Right.
It's just like, how can I compete with these people? It's what we talked about in our nepotism episode where you're like, I'm coming in as a nobody, meaning I have zero connections to the industry, but I work really hard and I'm dedicated and I work at it every day and I'm always willing to get better. But how can I compete against someone who's like mom and dad run HBO. I can't. Like, the game is always going to be skewed towards a certain kind of person.
Exactly.
And I can see growing up in poverty and like coming to writing like by very natural means and not so traditional or educational, just needing something to be like, I'm good. I'm good.
Well, and even outside of like the nepotism argument, because it sounds like Sonia doesn't have any level of nepotism on her side.
No, she's also just hardworking writer.
Exactly.
As far as I can tell.
This reminds me of like when I was a kid. I played exactly one season of hockey growing up. I played roller hockey when I was in 5th grade. It was right before my parents got divorced. And it was the first time I'd ever played hockey. And I was playing against kids who had been playing hockey since they were about 2 or 3 years old.
Dude.
And so I would come home from practice and I would tell both of my parents, like, I'm terrible. I am not anywhere close to good as any of these other kids. Then my dad to this day was like, well, yeah, of course you are. Like, those kids have been playing forever. You just got to play anyway. But I didn't understand that as a kid. And then my parents got divorced. So I stopped having a ride to hockey practice. So, but yes, it's that feeling of like, I'm never going to catch up. I'm so far behind already. And I imagine that Dawn probably had that feeling too of
again, I don't want to assign emotion or like motive to her in any way. I'm just putting myself in that position and I'm like, okay, what would be going on in my mind?
Yes.
What do I have control over would be really what I'm asking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 6 days after she gets that Facebook comment, 6 days, June 30th, 2016, Dawn sends Sonia another email and she says, hey, I heard you wrote a kidney donation story. Cool. Can I read it? That sounds like a very passive aggressive email to me.
Man.
It's cool with an exclamation point. Can I read it? 10 days later, so July 10th, 2016, Sonia writes back and confirms that she is in fact writing a short story, quote, about a woman who receives a kidney, partially inspired by how my imagination took off after learning of your own tremendous donation, end quote. She also goes on to claim that Dawn's story certainly sparked Sonia's imagination, but she was not writing about Dawn specifically, but rather about themes and topics that had always fascinated her. Right.
Yeah.
So Dawn's spider senses were still tingling. So she sends another message and she says, it's the interpersonal layer that feels off to me, Sonia. You seemed not to be aware of my donation until I pointed it out to you. But if you had already kicked off your fictional project at this time, well, I think your behavior is a little deceptive, at least weird, end quote.
Oh, God.
Initial thoughts.
This feels incredibly catty for really no reason, is my initial thought. I forget the episode we talked about it, but like the idea of writing something that is inspired by a thing you hear of somebody else's personal story, it gets into gray water. 100%.
I think we're in gray water.
I think 100% it's into gray water, right? Imagine somebody writing a story about a diabetic after meeting you and talking to you, right? It would feel weird. I understand why Dawn might feel weird about this whole thing, but her energy, she's bringing the wrong energy to this whole conversation. From my perspective, too aggressive.
She's real on top of it.
Too aggressive from the jump.
I do think it's important for the purposes of this discussion to cut to the ending so that we have some full context.
Okay, sure.
This story is definitely strongly inspired by Dawn.
Okay.
It is a real damning analysis of people who use a seemingly altruistic act to garner love and attention from strangers. So let's talk about the short story a little bit.
Okay.
It's called The Kindest, and it's about a woman named Chun Tao who is struggling with an addiction to alcohol. She is subsequently in a car crash, injured, and needs a new kidney. The donor turns out to be a white, wealthy, and entitled woman. Quote, she is a stranger to her own impulses, unaware of how what she considers a selfless act also contains elements of intense, unbridled narcissism, end quote. And we know that Sonia based a lot of this character on Dawn because, 1, in early drafts of the story, the donor's name was Dawn. She later changed it to Rose.
Smart.
2, Dawn's letter to her kidney recipient was basically copy and pasted into the short story. Details of that section were not changed until way later.
Okay.
And 3, Sonia herself confirms all of this in some documents that will soon be revealed.
Oh, Sonia, you shouldn't have done that.
So it is inspired by Dawn. Okay. Dawn is not wrong to think something's off here.
For sure. Again, I think the problem is the conclusion is arrived to by her thoughts of me. That's my problem with Dawn's thing, is that she's reaching out to Sonia. She's doing all these things because of her kind of self-involvedness with her own donation. If she didn't care that much, if she actually just gave away her kidney and then never thought about it again, I don't think this would have happened.
It would not have.
Exactly. So I get why Dawn feels the way she feels. And in a weird way, she's kind of confirming a lot of the themes that it sounds like Sonia might have been exploring in her short story.
That is very interesting that you bring that up, Connor. Wow. Did you write this article? We are going to talk about the legal things that happened. This is the legal chapter of life.
Oh boy.
July 15th, 2016. Dawn emailed Sonia again. Here was a friend entrusting something to you, making herself vulnerable to you. At least the conclusion I draw from your responses is that I was mistaken to consider us the friends that I did. End quote. Sonia did not respond right away, and 3 days later, Dawn posted on Facebook. I discovered that a writer friend has based a short story on something momentous I did in my own life without telling me or ever intending to tell me. End quote.
Oh boy.
You're losing me. Dawn, you're losing me.
Something momentous that I did.
I'm here. I'm here for you. I get it. I really do. As much as I can, right? I still have my kidneys, but like, I get it. Keep the crash out in the house.
Oh God. It's
Girl, we got to keep the crash out in the house.
As soon as she goes on Twitter, she's done.
Stop opening Facebook.
Yeah,
Honestly, if you're ever having a bad day, the last place you're going to go is Facebook. Toss your phone out the window onto the highway. You will get more out of that than you will going on Facebook and venting out loud.
Again, I think I maintain this idea. People tell on themselves. People cannot help but tell on themselves. And Dawn is telling on herself in this exchange, talking about how something momentous that I did, based on something momentous that I did. It's like, dude, you understand the words you're saying, right? We can all hear you, like, not good. So even if you've been wronged, you know what I mean? It doesn't frame well what you're doing.
No. Yeah. So Dawn waited another day and then sent her another message, both in text and in email. Quote, I am still surprised that you didn't care about my personal feelings. I wish you'd given me the benefit of the doubt that I wouldn't interfere. End quote. Still no response from Sonia. The next day, so that's July 20th, Dawn wrote to Sonia again.
Oh no, dude.
Quote, am I correct that you do not want to make peace? Not hearing from you sends that message. End quote. And this time, Sonia responds, and she says, I see that you are merely expressing real hurt, and for that I am truly sorry. I myself have seen references to my own life and others' fiction, and it certainly felt weird at first. But I maintain that they have the right to write about what they want, as do I and as do you. For me, honoring another's artistic freedom is a gesture of friendship and of trust. End quote. Now, Dawn is crashing out and emailing her way too much and not handling this well, for sure. I think Sonia is also being intellectually dishonest here.
Okay.
Because Dawn is right to not trust Sonia, because Sonia does not like Dawn. That's going to become very clear in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Sonia does not like Dawn. She doesn't respect Dawn. She doesn't want to hang out with Dawn. But she's been lurking in this Facebook group, reading things. Maybe there's a group chat happening somewhere else where she and some other writer friends are doodling and diddling, and they're making fun of her.
Mm-hmm.
And then she wrote this story using, again, her name and a letter that she posted publicly. So to say honoring another's artistic freedom is a gesture of friendship and of trust, Sonia will go on to say that she does not consider Dawn a friend. And clearly there's a reason Dawn should not trust Sonia.
Right.
So again, like I said at the very beginning, I'm not on either side here. I don't like how this was handled on either team.
No, because you're right. There is a way. I mean, this is like, you get into the ethics of artistic creation, right? What is the ethical way to write? You see something like this happening in real life. What is the ethical way to write the story about another person that doesn't involve who they actually are, but you get to pull the themes that you are feeling as a person,
yes,
an observer of the thing that is happening.
That can be a tough line to walk, but it is the most important thing, whether you're writing fiction or no, I guess it's because if you're writing nonfiction, it needs to be truthful, but it needs to be pretty factual. But with fiction, you need to be creative. You got to get creative.
Yeah.
If I hate you and I write a story about how much I hate my boyfriend and I title the story, I hate my boyfriend Conrad, that's not difficult to figure out who I'm talking about, is it?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the thing. As an artist, you have an ethical responsibility. I say this, If you don't like the person, I guess there's technically no ethical responsibility at all.
No, I think you have an ethical responsibility even to people you don't like.
I agree.
Not liking
That's the
someone
thing.
is no reason to dox them or to write super negatively about them or to make fun of them in such a public facing way.
Well,
I don't.
Yes, and we've already established Sonia right now is more successful than Dawn as a writer.
Yes.
And has had work published. And there's a power imbalance in this as well.
Yes.
So you're right. It doesn't look good on either side. Like Dawn is clearly crashing out. I don't think in an unreasonable way, but it is on the back of being a bit of a self-entitled, self-aggrandizing person.
Maybe a little performative, a little out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's an excuse to. Here's the thing, is Sonia was so lit up by her apparent dislike for Dawn that she wrote a whole short story about it and is now gaslighting Dawn into thinking it's fine, it's normal. This is just how the art world works. And that does not have to be true. The world is always what we make it. And writers have a responsibility to be way more ethical and mindful than that. So to say, it doesn't have anything to do with you, I just was inspired by your situation and like, you need to just trust me on this, that's dishonest and that's not right. If you're going to write about someone, and then they find out that you wrote about them and you took elements of their life, you should own up to that.
Yeah.
Or we're not going to get anywhere.
The thing, you and I have talked about this a lot. You can say and do anything. You actually can. You actually can say and do anything. Now, those things you say and the actions you do have consequences.
Yes.
Like, you can absolutely write about Dawn and how insufferable you think she is and how awful you think she is.
Absolutely, yes.
And the consequence of that is people like Dawn probably doesn't like you anymore. People who like Dawn don't like you anymore.
Maybe people who were like comfortable and open around you don't feel that way anymore because now they feel like you're going to pilfer parts of their life and write about it in a negative way and not let them know. I think that has a really negative effect on your life. So if you wanted to write the story, I don't know about like shopping it around in these writers groups that Dawn is also a part of.
Yeah.
You didn't think this was going to get back to her in some way?
Right. And there's a way to do it. I mean, that's the thing. You obfuscate. If you want to write a story about donations like that, layers of obfuscation are your friend.
Plausible deniability.
Right. Because you have to be honest with yourself. Be creative. Write about a non-existent thing. If you're inspired by the themes of a person's life and by character flaws that you think they might have, take them and then ignore the person. Create the thing that is yours.
Yeah.
Don't keep dipping into that well.
Yeah.
Because the more you dip into that well and pull water from, the more like that water is going to look at the end result, right? And of course, Dawn recognizes that in herself. You pulled from her well. Like
how many other people vote to give a non-directed kidney donation and then are very public and who is a white woman? How many of those people do you know realistically?
Exactly.
So we can talk about a little bit more about that in a minute, but let's keep going with our story.
Okay.
So this long email exchange between Sonia and Dawn ended in a sort of truce, but things were tense and uncomfortable.
Okay.
But it's just kind of like, okay, let sleeping dogs lie sort of thing. August 2017. The Kindest was published in American Short Fiction, which is a magazine I love.
Okay.
Wonderful writing in that magazine. Dawn saw that this was happening, but did not buy a copy and just let it kind of go by.
Sure.
But the blows would keep on coming. Because in June 2018, so about a year later, the magazine dropped the paywall to the story, so it was now publicly available. To promote the story, the magazine had posted a photograph of Sonia side by side with a shot of the short fiction titan Raymond Carver.
Oh.
Dawn could not help it anymore, and she finally read the story, which I'm going to go out on a limb and say she should not have done that. I do not think you should have done that.
It's just going to hurt
Stay
yourself.
away. You know it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
You know it's going to hurt. You've been avoiding it all this time. That was really smart. Don't do it. Don't do it. Cut your losses. Here's an excerpt from the story. I myself know something of suffering, but from these experiences, I've acquired both courage and perseverance. I've also learned to appreciate the hardship that others are going through, no matter how foreign. Whatever you're endured, remember that you are never alone. As I prepared to make this donation, I drew strength from knowing that my recipient would get a second chance at life. I withstood the pain by imagining and rejoicing in you, end quote. Now, we're going to do a little side-by-side of Dawn's letter and this letter from the short story.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just curious if anybody can tell the difference. Can you remember which one Dawn wrote and which one Sonia wrote? They're basically exactly the same thing.
Yikes.
Sonia took this from Facebook and just put it into her short story.
That's not good.
That's not good.
That's a really bad move.
That's bad practice.
Because the thing is, like, again, we've talked about it already. Objectively, Dawn did a good thing. Objectively, Dawn did a good thing by donating her kidney, right? And a very personal thing. And that letter, I imagine, that she wrote is also very personal. And she shared it, and it's public. If you're Sonia and you want to add separation to this thing, like, it's becoming more and more like a personal takedown. If you don't like Dawn, if you don't like what she's doing, fine. Why are you making your career a personal takedown of another person? But seriously, like, you and I talk about this with the subjects that we cover on our channel. We don't want to make certain podcast episodes about people who are currently suffering from a certain thing. If there are children involved, we tend to not want to talk about that.
Anything true crime related, we tend to veer away from.
Right. Because that's our ethical line. Like, we don't want to be the people to do that kind of thing.
No.
Right. And we look very hard at the subjects we cover to make sure that what happens doesn't affect somebody who is currently living through it. So I don't know. You as an artist have to figure that out for yourself, especially if you're going to be drawing from real life, which you always are as an artist, right?
Yes. I think Robert Kolker, the New York Times journalist, made a really good point here. He said, it had been 3 years since she donated her kidney. Sonia had all that time to launder the letter, to rewrite it drastically or remove it, and she hadn't bothered. End quote. Here's something I want to say. Writers know their own writing, the same way you know your baby's cry from others, the way you know your mother's perfume. If you're dealing with a bad thief who just copy and pastes your words and calls them their own, like in the case of James Somerton, that's very easily recognizable to people outside of yourself and outside of your circle. If you're dealing with a mediocre thief who changes just enough to avoid litigation, but not enough to render the work wholly original, that, I think, is the worst place to be.
Yes.
Because H. Bomber Guy can't make a 3-hour drop-down video about that. Right?
Right.
Like, if James Somerton had been really present in the era of AI, what I bet he would have done, I'm just going to guess, would have been taking these essays from these other magazines, from these videos, writing out the transcript, and then asking a generative AI model like ChatGPT, hey, can you just rearrange this in such a way that it's not plagiarism?
Yes.
And then you can say it. It's virtually the exact same thing. You're pulling from exactly the same source. It's the same essay, just rearranged enough so that a lawyer can't sue you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that gives you. That's a really difficult place to be. So in this case, Sonia did reword the letter a little bit, but it is still very recognizable as Dawn's letter.
Yeah.
There's no question. Her thumbprint is right on it. But it's a really difficult question for a lawyer to answer. Like, is this actually grounds for plagiarism, or does it count as fair use? And that's going to be a tennis match that we keep discussing throughout this case.
It is.
But yeah, I think that's the worst place to be, because you know that your work has been stolen the way you know the sound of your own voice, but proving that to other people can be challenging and sometimes impossible. And the argument, well, maybe they were inspired by you. That's what art is anyway. It gets artists out of a lot of jams and I think that's unjustifiable. Just saying, well, they were inspired by you. Like, they took elements of your life and they just wanted to like rearrange it. Do more than that. Do more than a rearrangement. Mm-hmm. You're an artist. You're supposed to make something. Don't rearrange someone else's stuff.
Yeah, I know. That's really troubling too. I mean, you've talked about having work stolen before. People in college specifically kind of taking work that you had written. I mean, in this situation, if you were Dawn, what would be going through your head? What would you be doing, do you think? How would you handle this whole situation?
If I'm just going to apply to my own life. Yes. I have type 1 diabetes. Mm-hmm. I do celebrate a diversity every year. Sometimes I post about it publicly. If I found out that someone in my circle, not a close friend, but a colleague, someone I'm friendly with, had taken some of my social media posts and copy and pasted them into a short story about me behaving like a white savior, mm-hmm. an unlikable antagonist in their story, I would feel targeted is the only word that's coming to mind. Yeah. I'd feel so hurt. And like, what a personal, it doesn't get more personal than your internal organs.
No.
That is as personal as it gets. Yeah. Like, regardless of how much you don't like me, fine. Like, you can, if somebody had just written a fiction story about like a bitch with diabetes, I wouldn't assume that's about me because I don't think I'm like that.
Right, exactly.
I'd be like, wow, what a crazy woman. And the writer would be like, I know, doesn't she sound like the freaking worst? You know, and like but we can coexist that way. But if it's clear, like her name is Linda,
right,
and she lived in Texas for a while and she has type 1 diabetes and she has all these negative qualities just clearly coming from a really hateful place, I would feel pretty cornered.
Yeah.
And I would be looking at my options.
Yeah.
I would.
I know, that's the thing. Like you've already said, I'm not really in support of either of these two people.
No, it's hard to root for either of them.
It's hard to root, but I definitely think Sonia's done something pretty severely wrong. And as an artist, I disagree with it.
I do too.
What I've heard, at least, I disagree with the way that she's gone about it.
It seems like a real lapse in judgment to me.
Yes.
If nothing else.
Yes.
But yeah, just because something is legal doesn't mean it's moral.
No, you can still be an asshole and follow the law.
Yeah.
Like that's.
For Sonia's part, I really get the instinct, so much so that it bothers me a little bit, actually, to write about someone that you know is bad, but you can't exactly point to it. This is what we were talking about earlier, where it's like, on the surface, some people look like angels against a lavender sky, but you just know that they're a problem the same way you know your own writing. So the thing is, like, Sonia and Dawn had been running in the same circle for a long time. So Sonia had already developed her opinion of Dawn.
Right.
And then Dawn donated a kidney. And now it's really tough to argue against that. That is something that is really hard to butt up against.
Yes.
So I get the instinct of being like, I need to express the feelings that are coming up dealing with this insufferable person. I'm going to put it in fiction like I always do. And I'm going to publish it and wipe my hands of it and I'll be done.
Yeah.
I totally get that instinct. I really do. I think she needed to change the wording of that letter much more. I think she needed to write her own letter. A few days after reading The Kindest, Dawn learned that the story was the 2018 selection for One City, One Story, a program sponsored by the Boston Book Festival. That summer, some 30,000 copies of The Kindest would be distributed free all around town. An entire major U.S. city would be reading about a kidney donation, with Sonia Larson as the author, unquote. And that was the beginning of the siege.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so the Grogs are released, and now they're taking over the city.
So, and just to clarify, again, even though I don't support either of these people, what I said is still true. Dawn giving a non-directed kidney donation to a random person is an objectively good thing. And being a spokesperson for non-directed organ donation, period, is great. That's a big positive. I think the world needs more of that. This is also doing, like, Sonia's story is ultimately, I think, doing damage to that idea as well.
You're overshadowing the good that you did,
Correct.
I think. So hearing that Sonia is going to be the reader participating in One City, One Story makes Dawn crash out, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
We thought she was crashing out before.
Sure.
That was not even a little... Now she's...
But they announced that Sonia's going to be doing
falling off the cliff.
Yeah.
Crash out.
They announced that she's going to be doing an actual reading and she can't.
And 30,000 copies of that story are going to be passed out to people.
That's crazy.
And most of the people close to the story know that it's about you. Yikes. So Dawn decides to contact American Short Fiction and the Boston Book Festival, asking them about their plagiarism policies. Then she contacts Grub Street, the Breadloaf Conference, the Association of Literary Scholars, Critics, and Writers, and the Vermont Studio Center, where Sonia was an alum. When she doesn't get the response she's looking for, she contacts 2 editors at the Boston Globe. Wouldn't they like to know if the author of this summer's Citywide Common Reads short story was a plagiarist? This is not the solution. I think it goes without saying. This is also grossly irresponsible. Step away and do laundry with a friend.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. There's nothing more humbling and more calming than folding your underwear in the presence of somebody else. Just do it for one afternoon. It will blow over.
Yeah.
Dawn also hired a lawyer. Here's a quote from the New York Times article. Quote, on July 3rd, 2018, Dawn's lawyer sent the book festival a cease and desist letter demanding they hold off on distributing The Kindest for the One City, One Story program or risk incurring damages of up to $150,000 under the Copyright Act, end quote. Sonia lawyered up too. And later that same month, Dawn's lawyer suggested settling with the book festival for $5,000 plus an attribution at the bottom of the story. But Sonia's team was extremely reluctant to sign off on this after they learned that Dawn had contacted the Boston Globe. So people are like reaching into their waistbands and holding the butt of the gun, but no one's drawing yet.
Yeah, they're getting ready to, though.
Yes, I can see the Clint Eastwood eyes squinting at me. Robert Kolker, again, the journalist who wrote this New York Times article that I'm pulling a lot of the factual information from, makes a very valid and frightening point here. Quote, in reality, Sonia Larson was pretty vulnerable. An indemnification letter in her contract with the festival meant that if Dawn did sue, she would incur the costs. End quote. And being a writer with some success does not translate to wealthy. I don't believe either party can afford to throw money at this problem until it goes away.
No.
We work for pennies on the dollar. And this is something that the journalist actually brings up a couple of times. Again, it's like calling back to earlier in the story when it's like being a writer means like a residency here, a publication there. It's like if you get 5 things, period, in a year, that's a pretty good year for you.
Right.
But how much money, if you had to guess, do you think Sonia made on this short story? Total.
Like $15,000.
$425.
Are you serious?
Period.
Oh my God.
And that's a very successful short story.
I was trying to do the math on like, well, they're distributing 30,000 copies. They've got to be, Jesus, that's so
Total.
That's so little.
That's how much money she had incurred for writing that story.
Oh, wow.
So I want to keep that in mind. They want to sue her for $5,000. She only made $425 on it.
Yeah.
So
Yikes,
money
dude.
is at stake here. Just because I think we talk about like writers and like successful writers, and my mind instantly goes to people like Stephen King and Aaron Sorkin, Sarah J. Maas, who live in these gorgeous houses and like never need to write a book again, and they can live forever, and their grandchildren will drive golden flying cars. But this is not the case for Sonia Larson.
No.
She's a working writer.
Yeah.
Okay. So searching online for more mentions of the kindest, Dawn saw something available for purchase. At first, this seemed to be a snippet of the Audible version of the story because there was not an audio book, but there was like a professional reading of the short story that was available somewhere.
Okay.
On Audible, presumably. But it was created a year before the American short fiction version. And remember, the American short fiction version is what Dawn originally read.
Okay.
And what made her go, I might need a lawyer. Okay. So, but this version is slightly different. And in fact, this was something way weirder, a recording of an even earlier iteration of the story. When Dawn listened to this version, she heard something very different, particularly the letter from the donor. And then it's the letter again, and it's literally the exact same thing. It is literally copy-pasted.
From, it's copy-pasted Dawn's letter.
Yeah.
In Sonia's.
So before, the American short fiction version is like, wow, you just kind of pushed a comma here, you changed this word here, and then that was it. That's pretty blatant, yikes, plagiarism. This is copy-pasted.
Gosh. So this is an earlier version of Sonia's story that has Dawn's letter that she wrote to her donee, I guess.
Yeah.
Word for word.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Dawn says, I almost fell out of my chair. I'm thinking, when did I record my letter with a voice actor? Because this voice actor was reading me the paragraph about my childhood trauma, end quote. It confirmed in her eyes that Sonia Larson had known she had a problem. She had altered the letter after Dawn came to her with her objections in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn's lawyer subsequently increased her demand to $10,000. Sonia tried to argue that this wasn't evidence of plagiarism, but proof that she had been trying to avoid plagiarism, but not before making the story public, and that's the problem.
Yes.
You should have changed that letter before you made it public, before you put out an audiobook version, without changing anything about Dawn Dorland's letter.
That's crazy.
You needed to zhuzh it way before that point. Jeez.
And not to cut you off here, but what's the hurry? Like, what's the urgency to put this thing out? You know what I mean?
I do get that, actually. If you have a short story that you think is good, you start submitting it for publication. You send it out to people. You're like, hey, do you want it? No. Okay. Do you want it? You're like a town crier. Just like, do you want this? Does anybody want this? Do you want to give me $10 to put this somewhere? I spent 25 hours of my life on this. I totally get that. You finish something, you think it's good, and you're like, okay, let's get it somewhere. Let's make it work for me. Because to build a really great short story, it sounds like, oh, how long could a good short story take? Like, not even an afternoon. Oh no, dude, you could spend years chipping away at a good short story.
That's fair.
So you want to put it out and get paid for it because you need that $425 ASAP. It was then, in August 2018, facing this new onslaught of plagiarism claims, that Sonia Larson stopped playing defense. She wrote a statement to the Globe declaring that anyone who sympathized with Dawn's claims afforded her a certain privilege. My piece is fiction, she wrote. It is not her story, and my letter is not her letter. And she shouldn't want it to be. She shouldn't want to be associated with my story's portrayal and critique of white savior dynamics. But her recent behavior, ironically, is exhibiting the very blindness I'm writing about, as she demands explicit identification in and credit for a writer of color's work. Sonia Larson's friend, Celeste Ng, who is a successful writer in her own right, agrees, at least in part, that the conflict seemed racially coded. There's very little emphasis on what this must be like for Sonia, Ng told me, and what it is like for writers of color generally to write a story and then be told by a white writer, actually, you owe that to me, end quote. I do get that. Part of it literally did belong to Dawn. That's the problem. It's the letter part that we're zooming in on here. Kidney donation, that's up for grabs. Self-directed donation, up for grabs. White savior, annoying woman, annoying white woman. All of that is up for grabs. You can play with that all you want. You ended up copy and pasting something that another writer ultimately posted on Facebook and put it in your short story.
Yes. Something that was very personal to that person, something that came from that person's like real feelings about the thing that they were really doing. You kind of lose the hill to defend on that.
You do. And she is talking about her traumatic childhood, the things in her life that led to her making this decision. So part of it did belong to her. That's the problem.
Yes.
So I disagree with this. No one's considering what this must be like for Sonia. It's like Sonia didn't have something stolen from her. I get why Dawn's upset. I get why Sonia doesn't like Dawn. I do understand both sides of the street here, but they're both dirty sides of the street. So I started this episode off saying that I understand very much where both of these women are coming from, because I do. I understand Sonia's defense of free speech. Absolutely. As writers, our livelihoods depend on that principle. I also understand being helicoptered by people that you find completely insufferable. I'll remind all of you that after I graduated from theater school in New York, I tried to join the U.S. military.
Yes.
I wanted the exact opposite of what I had been living in for the last 4 years. I was about to fly down to San Antonio and officially enlist when I got a relatively cushy job at a production company and took that instead. That is how disillusioned I felt by art and artist communities at that time. So I understand the impulse to take that frustration and turn it into a story. I have done it. I just posted a story on my Substack yesterday about a real person. I changed her name. I changed her whole backstory. I changed her and her husband's like dynamic. I made so much of that character up that it does not even closely resemble the real person that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. But that real person is what gave me the spark for the thing. And it was a similar feeling. It was like this performative white savior kind of thing. I'm just like, I'm being preached to. I'm being told that all I need is permission to be like creative and like that. I don't know about that. So taking that inspiration and making something phony out of it, making something fictional out of it is a very natural reaction. But you do owe it to yourself, if not to the person you dislike, to change details.
Yeah.
So also, as writers, we do ourselves a disservice when we behave recklessly and justify it with neurodivergence or inequality, or with vague and condescending mottos like, that's just the way the world works. The world works the way we do. I cannot imagine Sonia would appreciate it if Dawn wrote a short story about a young Chinese-American woman in Minnesota who feels caught between two opposing worlds. If parts of her social media presence had been copy and pasted and then published and then awarded and then widely celebrated in the city of her origin. I think this is as simple as, if you wouldn't want it to happen to you, don't do it to someone else.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, we had a discussion about this kind of with the our romance books episode, our creepy romance books.
Yes, fan fiction.
Yes, fan fiction. And I was taught by our comment section the term real people fiction or real person fiction, which is where a fan fiction author will take a real person that actually exists and write fan fiction about them.
Yes. And
this is a subset, I believe, of fan fiction. To
controversial.
Me, it's very controversial for very obvious reasons. Stop doing that.
Yeah, I don't like that.
No, stop doing that.
Not a fan of that.
That's terrible.
Do that. No.
Don't do that.
Please.
You can't do that to real people.
Please don't do that. Do that. If you do it, that stays in the bedroom drawer.
Exactly. You can write whatever. You are allowed to do whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
You're allowed to shit on the street outside. You're allowed to walk around naked. Everything has a consequence.
Yes.
Everything has a
Someone's got to
consequence.
clean up that poop.
But you cannot, people don't exist for your own marionette show. That's not why people are like inhabiting the world.
No.
And I think sometimes artists get a little lost on that.
I agree 100%.
You know, I love the idea of taking inspiration from the world around you. That's what you have to do. That's what art is. But the world doesn't exist to be your play and to be your playthings.
No.
Dawn is still a real person. Dawn is still a real person. Just like the people in the Real People fan fiction that we talked about are real people.
Yeah.
And it's not okay to treat them like anything but real people. So that's where I'm going to end that thought, I guess.
Yeah. And it's really too bad because I think the premise of Sonia's short story is fantastic. An unlikable donor, organ donor, awesome.
Yes.
Like, that's a fantastic premise. You really don't need Dawn's annoying whatever to color the character. Sonia Larson is a strong enough character to color in those lines on her own.
Right.
But I think her distaste for Dawn is getting in the story's way, or it's certainly getting in her career's way. And that's not right. Like, we don't need to create obstacles for ourselves. As we've discussed in this episode, it's already hard enough to be a professional writer. We don't need to invite people into the room who are going to make it harder.
Absolutely.
August 13th, 2018. Quote, Deborah Porter, the executive director of the Boston Book Festival, told Sonia that One City, One Story was canceled for the year. There is seemingly no end to this, and we cannot afford to spend any more time or resources, she said. When a fellow writer and friend of Sonia Larson reached out to Deborah Porter, imploring her to reconsider, this was her reply. That story should never have been submitted to us in the first place. This is not about a white savior narrative. It's about us and our sponsor and our board not being sued if we distribute the story. You owe us an apology. Then she emailed Sonia directly and said, it seems to me that we have grounds to sue you. Kindly ask your friends not to write to us, end quote. I hate this.
Dude.
I hate this for Sonia.
Don't.
I hate it for everyone. Everyone is losing. We're drowning. And Leonardo DiCaprio is using the dresser to save himself and his child bride.
Don't mess with people who run nonprofit organizations.
Dude.
Like, of course they're
That
going
was
to
a
bite back.
heavy door slam.
Yeah.
If I ever read one.
No kidding.
September 6th, 2018. Dorland's lawyer raised her demand to $15,000 and added a new demand that Sonia promised to pay Dorland $180,000 should she ever violate the settlement terms, which included never publishing the story again. Sonia Larson's lawyer turns around and accuses Dawn of defamation, which for once is actually totally plausible.
Sure.
Neither party will stand down, so on January 30th, 2019, Dawn and her lawyers were both sued in federal court, accused of defamation and tortious interference. That is, spreading lies about Sonia Larson and trying to tank her career. 4 years this has been going on, I'd like to remind everybody.
Oh my gosh.
2015 to 2019.
Yeah, that's
when
right.
it was finally filed in court.
Wow.
4 years of this.
Over a short story that could have just stayed in somebody's desk.
Your parents have both said that if you're in court, you're losing.
Yes.
That is absolutely the case here. These are not billion-dollar corporations that can just launch bans at each other until somebody gets tired. These are working people. These are working class people. What are we doing in court?
And even if you recoup all the money that you spent on lawyers' fees, you've lost all that time. Corporations have lawyers that they pay by the hour to be there for them. They're not losing the time.
No.
A person is. A person always loses when they go to court.
Yes.
No matter what. Even if they win, they lose.
So, Dawn filed a counterclaim against Sonia, accusing her of violating the copyright of her letter and intentional infliction of emotional distress, sleepiness, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, weight loss, and several incidents of self-harm. I can tell you right now, that is not going to fly. I couldn't claim distress in my hit and run case, and I literally had a traumatic brain injury and 2 broken feet and diagnosed PTSD.
Yes.
So they're not going to give it to you for a stolen Facebook letter.
No, not in Boston.
Again, the justice system is not broken. There is no system for justice. Let us not forget. The judge knocked out the emotional distress claim, but the question of whether the kindest violates Dawn's copyrighted letter remains in play. Yeah, it sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just take a quick tangent and talk about something else.
Okay. What are we talking about?
Let me put some lipstick on just to, now that we've mixed it up. This whole debacle reminded me of another debacle, and it's actually mentioned here in the article too, so I'm feeling very worldly and smart.
Okay.
I have read at least 2 articles. Who else can say that? Have I already regaled the saga of Cat Person to you?
No, I don't think I know about the Cat Person saga.
Okay. Cat Person was a short story published in 2017 by The New Yorker.
Yes, I do know about this story.
My other boyfriend. The story follows a 20-year-old woman navigating a tense and uncomfortable sexual relationship with a 34-year-old man. They go on a date. It's not that great, but they go back to his apartment and he's trying to get something going. And she decides to just go along with it because that's easier than saying no. She's like, I don't know how he would handle rejection, so let's just do it and get it over with. This story went incredibly viral, which might be the first and only time a short story has ever done so.
Mm-hmm.
But it went viral for several reasons. One, at the heart is that very brittle catch-22 that many women find themselves in. Do I say yes and do something I don't want to do, or do I say no and risk something else happening?
Mm-hmm.
And this was 2017 at the peak of the Me Too movement.
Yes.
So that story went here, there, and everywhere. Now, it was revealed shortly after publication that the author, Kristen Rupenian, borrowed details from another woman's life. Alexis Nowicki published an essay in Slate revealing that she believed the story had been written by pilfering details about her very real life and a very real complicated relationship she had with a man named Charles. She had never met Kristen Rupenian before, but they came from the same small hometown, lived in the same college dorms, and worked at the same theater as the female protagonist in the story did. And like the man in the story, Charles was tall, slightly overweight, and sometimes wore a rabbit fur cap. Pretty undeniable similarities there.
Yep.
Now, Kristen Rupenian handled this a little bit different than Sonia Larson did. As it turns out, Rupenian did know Charles and told Nowicki that she had gleaned details of her previous relationship with Charles through social media. It's a sad story, especially as Charles died suddenly the year before this story was published.
Oh, wow.
And Alexis Nowicki clearly desires to set the record straight about a man she felt was kind and decent, unlike Robert, the male character in this story.
Okay.
Here's a quote from Alexis. What's difficult about having your relationship rewritten and memorialized in the most viral short story of all time is the sensation that millions of people now know that relationship as described by a stranger. Meanwhile, I'm alone with my memories of what really happened. Just like any death leaves you burdened with the responsibility of holding on to the parts of a person that only you have. End quote. There was a lot of ensuing writer drama.
Yeah, I
after
can
this.
I can imagine why. Which honestly, I really respect that sentiment of like,
I do too.
it's not about the thing that you stole. It's more about like this person's life was real. This was a real person. That's the thing I
Yes.
keep saying. This is a real person. And it's not fair to them that this is their legacy in theory, that they're now gone and can't defend themselves.
Yes.
Right?
And I think what Alexis Nowicki is touching on kind of touches on the ethics of true crime a little bit. Like when it's your dead loved one being speculated about and joked about, that misinformation becomes their epitaph.
Yes.
And I think Alexis Nowicki is totally right to feel that this casts a cold shadow over a real man's life, a man that she actually cared for and who isn't here to roll out more stories or clear the air.
Yeah.
It also raises a complicated question, like who has the right to write what story? Cat Person has also been made into a movie, by the way.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So.
Oh, man.
It just keeps going.
The thing I think about, I don't know, maybe this is not the right comparison, but like you and I are in a relationship. We're in a very lovely relationship.
What?
Being in a relationship doesn't mean that it's perfect all the time. You and I have been in arguments before, right?
I disagree.
And we've been in arguments that are very uncomfortable. We've had uncomfortable conversations because that's part of being in a relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
Is that you are going to hurt that person's feelings. You're
Yes.
going to hurt them. You're going to say things you regret.
And it's going to hurt a little extra because it's coming from the person that you care most about in the world, that you
Exactly.
trust most in the world.
Exactly. And if somebody heard about these details of some of our fights, I would feel very violated if they tried to write about you as a very vicious or mean person based on the details that they might have heard from someone else talking about our fights.
I do too. Like you're listening in on the grapevine. And again, I don't think taking enough creative liberties to, I don't think you're being a good thief.
No.
I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of back and forth from writers. A lot of writers weighed in, especially Lauren Groff, who I think has been published in the New Yorker several times. She's a professional writer. She said something akin to, every person I have ever met, I have held upside down by the ankles and shaken the stories out of their pockets. And Joan Didion said something very similar. She was like, a writer is always selling someone out. And I think that's true. That does not mean that we behave recklessly and unethically.
Yes.
I think if you're overhearing like elements of somebody else's very intimate relationship, you can take some parts of that and you have to put it through your own filter. It's got to go through the blender of you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, a good example that you and I talk about a lot is Lord of the Rings, right? That's the whole point of like theming and the idea of inspiration. Lord of the Rings was inspired by Tolkien's time in World War One.
Yes.
You'll notice it's not about World War One
at all. But once you know that, you can see it. I wonder if the orcs are the Germans.
Right. And it's about brotherhood and about being with a squad of men and going through something that is the hardest thing you've ever had to go through. And it feels like the world is ending.
Yeah. And riding into a certain death just because you don't want your friends to die alone.
Yeah. So that's what inspiration is. That is what writing is supposed to be. That is what art is supposed to be.
Yeah, transformative.
It's transformative, exactly.
You're not reporting. You're not a journalist. You're not going into a movie theater being like, tell me about your bad sex life.
No.
Tell me about the time you had sex with your boyfriend, but you didn't really want to.
Exactly.
So I can write about it for the New Yorker.
So yes, you can shake the details out of somebody's life's pockets, but the idea is you take all those details and you put them into a cocoon and then watch what it comes.
That way nobody can tell whose coin is whose.
Exactly.
Ideally.
Right.
I mean, come on, guys. I think we're being intellectually dishonest here. I don't like this discourse or the way that it's being held, where it's like, well, writers need to write about whatever. And it's like, yes, do you have to burn every bridge to do that well? I feel bad for you. I don't think you're a very good writer if you have to do that. I really want to refer back to that William Faulkner quote we've discussed before, where he says, at any given time, you should be pulling from 3 things: experience, observation, and imagination. And a really good writer can pull from all 3.
Yeah.
You at least need to be pulling from 2 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I think using all 3 is vital. That's how you avoid plagiarism and litigation and boredom on a smaller scale. Like, change details. It has to be a kidney donation, like we said, right? Because you can't donate a lot of other organs and live to tell the tale. So that just means you need to be more creative in other aspects of the story. And I think not doing so is grossly irresponsible, especially considering that the person you're writing about is a writer in the same groups of you and a little tender.
Yeah.
Dawn was always going to find out about this story. And then what?
Exactly.
I can't imagine you actually thought she was just going to cry privately about it and then move quickly on. Dawn doesn't strike me as that kind of woman.
No. Well, and honestly, I think that argument is intellectually dishonest to who Sonia is. Sonia sounds like a very bright person. The idea that she wouldn't know that Dawn would find out.
I don't really buy that.
I don't buy that either.
I think Dawn, I would guess that she wanted Dawn to know that it was about her.
I think so too.
Let's talk about the denouement. The litigation was moving probably at a glacial pace, if I had to guess, until sometime in 2021 when the discovery phase revealed a trove of documents. There in black and white were pages and pages of printed texts and emails between Sonia Larson and some other writing friends, gossiping about Dawn Dorland and deriding everything about her. The group chat had been subpoenaed.
Oh no, that's like the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about that with like every guy has group chats with their guy friends, and it's awful. Like if the FBI got a hold of that, you can be the most loving person of all time, you'll still go to federal prison.
Dude, the things I say in the comfort and safety of my closest friends would get me assassinated very quickly. So at some point, I guess Dawn had posted about her kidney donation with the hashtag "do more for each other." Okay. And Sonia sent like a screenshot of this in the group chat and said, "Oh my God, right? The whole thing, though I try to ignore it, persists in making me uncomfortable. I just can't help but think that she is feeding off of the whole thing. Of course, I feel evil saying this and can't really talk with anyone about it." Another writer said, "I don't know. A hashtag seems to me like a cry for attention." Somebody else says, "Right? Hashtag do more for each other. Like, what am I supposed to do? Donate my organs?" And then Celeste Ng, that prolific author we were talking about earlier, wrote, "Dawn can go fuck her one kidney." And again, these go on for pages.
Yeah, which, look.
You're allowed to do this.
Yes.
You're totally allowed to do this. But again, Sonia, my lady,
right.
You can't lie and say that this story has nothing to do with you.
Exactly.
I just got like the spark of imagination and I just ran wild with it. And this is a totally separate thing, blah, blah, blah. It clearly wasn't. Her name was Dawn. You copy and pasted that Facebook. And now you're making fun of her in a group chat.
Exactly.
You hate her. It's okay. You're allowed to.
I've talked shit about people in group chats before with my friends.
100%.
I think that happens in every group chat.
I'll say it right now on this podcast. I'll say who it is.
Exactly. There's insufferable people that I think it's worth commiserating over.
You gotta, especially if they're in your circle and they're not going anywhere. Like there's nothing you can do. They're around. It's like when you work with a horrible person in an office.
Yes.
It's like the people my mom talks about at her job. I have so much beef with a woman I've never met before who might live in New York. I'm not even sure. Like,
Right.
I'm like carrying a torch for this woman because she's caused my mom so much inconvenience and pain.
Exactly. So I don't want to judge them too hard for doing what group chats do, which is talk shit about others sometimes.
Yes, but also they're being cruel. They are really cruel. Pages talking about this woman. What else you guys must have other things in common, right?
Yeah. Which again, they were writing under the assumption that this group chat would never be read by anybody.
Right.
And when you take away the context of the actual group chat, it becomes clear like how vicious it is, right?
Rough.
And I think you don't see that when you're in the moment. Now, going back to what you said, the point of this is that it's so clear that Sonia had this baked into her mind when she was writing the story.
Yes.
That's the important
That's the
takeaway.
only reason it's relevant.
Like, I think push away whatever they were saying. It's group chat.
They were being bitchy. It's a bitchy group chat, whatever.
That's fine.
I actually don't care about that at all.
No, not at all.
Not everybody has to like you. I'm sure I'm the subject of some group chat somewhere from people that I barely remember, just whatever. Or maybe not. Maybe people I do know. Here's the really damning text message.
Okay.
Among her friends, Sonia Larson clearly explained the influence of Dawn's letter. In January 2016, she texted two friends, "I think I'm done with the kidney story, but I feel nervous about sending it out because it literally has sentences that I verbatim grabbed from Dawn's letter on Facebook. I've tried to change it, but I can't seem to. That letter was just too damn good. I'm not sure what to do, feeling morally compromised, like a good artist, but a shitty person." End quote.
Her lawyer, Dawn's lawyer, must have done a backflip across his office when he found this text message. That is the most damning piece of evidence to Sonia's case. My God.
It has sentences I verbatim grabbed from Dawn's letter on Facebook. I've tried to change it, but I can't seem to. That letter was just too damn good.
That is a full admittance. Wow.
I'm going to push back on what she says here. She says she's feeling morally compromised, like a good artist, but a shitty person. I want to push on that. You are not a good artist if you cannot behave responsibly. This idea that artists are too free-spirited and reckless to be thoughtful is an excuse to be lazy or cruel, or both. If you can't write without exploiting or without stealing someone else's words verbatim, to use Sonia's own phrasing, I think that is the definition of bad artistry. There is an ethical way to write this story and then to share it, and Sonia chose over and over again not to do that. If I'm going to criticize her for anything, it's that. She's allowed to be hateful in a group chat. She's allowed to take inspiration from real-life events. Of course she is. But she has lied and gaslit her way all the way to the court, and that is unethical, to say the least. A giant waste. It also, we're wasting everybody's time acting like you don't know what's going on.
Right.
I hate that. She's also being extremely deceptive in these early emails with Dawn. And she's being deceptive in this interview with the New York Times a little bit, I think, because she's claiming that Dawn has little to nothing to do with the story. Clearly, she has everything to do with this story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. There's more damning evidence than that, by the way. On August 15th, 2016, a day before telling Dawn, "I value our relationship," Sonia Larson wrote in a chat with another friend, "Dude, I could write pages and pages more about Dawn, or at least about this particular narcissistic dynamic, especially as it relates to race. The woman is a gold mine." End quote.
Oh, yikes.
Dawn says, "I think she wanted me to read her story, and for me and possibly no one else to recognize my letter." End quote. I don't think Dawn's off on that.
I think she kind of nailed it.
I think Dawn knows what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you and I said. Sonia sounds like a very bright person, a very smart person. I think she knew that Dawn was going to figure this out eventually.
Yes.
And I think she wanted her to figure this out eventually.
Yeah. And as a writer who hates and hates hard, I do think that is a very real possibility. I have written things in the past being like, I kind of hope they read this and think it's about them. I don't think that's ever happened. And I think a lot of that stuff I have ended up not even publishing because I'm just like, it's not worth it or it's not good or whatever. But there have been parts of me and parts in my life where I was like, I want to make a play all about how much I hate that person. Like, I really do get it.
Yeah.
But now, was the letter transformative use? That is what the court was tasked with deciding. That is the question.
Right.
Sonia seems to think so. She says, her letter, it wasn't art, it was informational. It doesn't have market value. It's like language that we glean from menus, from tombstones, from tweets. And Dorlin ought to know that. She's taken writing workshops. But Dawn says the whole reason they want it in the first place is because it's special. Otherwise, they wouldn't bother. End quote.
Yeah.
Tell me how I agree with both of them on that.
I know, that's the thing. Like, I kind of disagree on Sonia's point. I think that feels like a cheap shot to try and hurt Dawn's feelings. To say, it's not really personal. It feels like a menu. It's information.
To downplay it, when clearly it lit something up in you because you couldn't even change a word of it in the early drafts of that story. You were like, this is just too good.
And again, like we said at the beginning of this, like, yeah, Dawn's letter is a little strange. Not the thing I would have written if I had donated my kidney. But I'm also not Dawn. I haven't been through her experiences. I don't know what's personal to her.
I can't even pretend to know what I would say if I gave my kidney to a stranger.
Exactly.
I can't even approach it.
So for Dawn to write that and for Sonia to take it, to see it and feel such visceral feelings about it, and then to say, well, no, it's not really that important. It's just like a menu. It doesn't actually, it's just information.
You're downplaying it.
You're downplaying
Again,
it.
I think she's being a little intellectually dishonest. That's my biggest gripe with Sonia throughout this whole article is just like, be honest about it.
Yes.
Like, and Kristen Rupenian was very forthcoming about saying, yes, I do know this woman. She's not delusional. I overheard on social media and like from mutual friends that like details of her life, and I wrote a short story about it.
Yes.
Now we can have a conversation. But if you're just going to lie the whole time you're in the room, we can't even talk.
Yeah.
We can't even talk about the free speech argument. We can't even talk about the white savior argument because we're still caught on what the facts are. Such a waste of time. Also, I just want to touch on like this altruism thing. I think altruism, doesn't it mean do you do something with like virtually no expectation that it's going to come back to you?
Correct. With like no expectation of reward, compensation, or a good favor.
Right.
Like you give something, you do something with the sake of helping or enlivening somebody else.
I personally don't think that exists.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
That seems a little...
Even at its most selfless, an altruistic act. If you're going to a soup kitchen, nobody knows you're there, and you're helping feed people, there is still the personal satisfaction you get from doing that thing.
Yes.
So you objectively, you are getting something out of it.
It makes you feel good, or it makes you feel useful.
Right.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you're doing a good thing, I actually don't give a fuck why you're doing it.
Sure.
I don't care if you're doing it for a tax write-off, if you're doing it for a YouTube video, if you're doing it just because it makes you feel good to be a useful part of the community, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I always say? Get very generous or get very afraid.
I do think that there's the conversation of exploitation, doing altruistic things by exploiting other people.
Yeah, I'm against exploitation, but I'm not sure that altruism exists. I don't think that's a real thing, and I don't think it matters at all. If you gave your kidney to somebody and that makes you feel like a superhero, cool. That guy is still alive because you gave him his kidney. So that doesn't erase it just because you did it to feel a little something. Mm-hmm. And also, I don't know if somebody would go through with giving away their kidney, getting hacked in half and having their kidney ripped away and put into another person, a stranger, if they just wanted like a compliment.
Right.
You know, I think they might just ask for compliments, or they might just post on Facebook feeling sad today and then not explain why.
Yeah.
That's what you do when you want that. You don't donate an organ. I think we're getting a little weird here. Anyway, 2 years later.
Oh my God.
September 2023. This all started in 2015, folks. 2023. A judge finally ruled that the kindest was protected under fair use.
Okay.
The judge also ruled that Sonia Larson did not owe Dawn any money, and the court ruled against Sonia's claims of defamation and intentional interference, proving your wise mother's adage that if you're in court, you've already lost.
They both lost.
Both of them lost.
Yeah.
So what's the lesson here? Let's consider Dawn for a moment.
Okay.
I do think there is some expectation of a victim of something to be perfect. I think if Dawn had been just really funny, really likable, charming, if she had been Tom Hiddleston and this had happened to her then, I think the public would have reacted very differently to this story. I think people would have looked at Sonia and been like, you're mean, you're exploitative, you stole things that belong to them. I'm not seeing the road from your side of the wheel.
Yes.
That's not a saying. I don't know.
Put that on a
but
t-shirt.
You get it, my vision. But because Dawn has some follies of her own, some quirks that maybe make her a hard roommate, we're a little bit more like, but weren't you annoying? And I think for people that we consider annoying, we're much more willing to be like, well, bad things should probably happen to you. Like, you're kind of annoying.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. You know, the theater kid who's singing on the subway, we like it when they slip on the way out of the subway.
For sure.
Right? Like there's something about that where we don't mind it.
It feels like karmic balance for me a little bit. Like if somebody is being really annoying, like if somebody's husky is barking on the balcony for 6 hours at a time, to use not a real life example at all. And somebody comes out and just yells up at the apartment to say, hey, take the dog inside or take him for a walk, but he can't stay here. I would feel like, all right, the scales are even now.
Yeah.
Things are balancing out again. But I do think this perception of like a victim of something needs to be perfect is flawed. I think that's a flawed perception. Nobody is perfect, and still nobody deserves to have something stolen from them, or to especially like such a personal story. So I would bet there's some resentment here from the other writers because they knew Dawn before the surgery. They had already formed opinions about her, and maybe they did not like having her in their space. And then she goes off and does something as absolutely selfless as donating a kidney to a stranger. And now it might feel like you are no longer allowed to have your negative opinion about her, or at the very least, like it's inappropriate to express that publicly or to her.
Sure.
Because on the surface, she hasn't done anything wrong. She's just a woman going about her life.
Yeah.
In the way that feels most honest to her. But we are allowed to dislike people even after they do something objectively virtuous. Again, I don't have a problem with them bitching about her in the group chat.
No. I mean, the thing is, like, someone can have cancer, survive, and still be considered an asshole.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like, just because something bad happens to you doesn't wipe away the fact that you're still a person.
No.
You know? Like, you can think of somebody who really, you feel so heartbroken over thinking about their life, and that's still somebody who somebody else in the world does not like. You know what I mean? Everybody has at least one enemy.
Yeah.
Or someone who goes, I hate that person. They're terrible, regardless of how good they are.
Bryn Donovan wrote a really insightful essay about the narrative that gets lost in all of this discourse, which is organ donation. She's a writer, and she also donated a kidney to a stranger. And she points out that among the memes and quips that were born out of this whole dramatic debacle, a lot of the punching is going towards kidney donors, which is more than weird, and one of the many reasons I do not feel hopeful or social or forgiving towards most things. That's a crazy thing to get out of this story. The problem is not people who donate their kidneys.
No.
I think we know that, but let's just, I guess, say it out loud in case somebody out there is thinking,
I mean, that's what I was saying. Like, what a terrible way to... People are going to associate negativity with this thing.
I know.
You know?
And at the heart of this is just a man, this man who really needed a kidney and then received it and got to continue living. And that's not the story for most people. There are over 100,000 people on the waiting list in the US just for a kidney alone.
And that can't be understated. Like a life was given, and one life is worth so much.
Yes.
You know?
It is perfectly fine and understandable to hate bad poetry or pretentious artists or anything. Hate anything. But if you ever find yourself bullying someone who has donated an organ, maybe pull back. That is probably not a scar you want to point and laugh at. And if you're going to name a stupid character after somebody in your life, I would just encourage you to change that bio even more. To change their gender, make them single, shave their head, give them a dragon tattoo, make them Swedish, make them weird.
Tell the story from the perspective of the kidney. Like,
how about that?
You know,
and no one could have a problem with that. You won't get sued by the kidneys of the world.
Exactly.
But yes, that's the bad art friends debacle.
What a rabbit hole that was.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That was a lot of weird. Why are writer dramas so messy and gross?
I know. I feel a little weird. I feel a little sore and a little bummed out, and I have a tingly in the back of my brain that I think I'm angry. I don't know about what or who, but yeah. I'm mad. I'm Lindsey.
And I'm Connor.
And this has been a chit chat with the Ribbit Rats.
God.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, this was recommended by Avi in our suggestion box. Thank you so much. I had never heard of this at all. I never would have come across it without you. So thank you. That's a big forehead kiss for you. And if you are interested in hearing us talk about something, dive into a rabbit hole of any kind, we have a suggestion box in the description below. So feel free to put anything in there and we will do it.
Yes.
We read every single one.
And shout out to our coffee members over on Coffee. We love our coffee members. They love and support our show. Their name should be appearing right now on the screen. Thank you guys so much for supporting us. It means...
I want this outro music.
Oh my gosh.
Keep going. Don't let it interrupt you.
It means the world to us that you're willing to put up some money towards what we do. It really warms our hearts a lot. If you want to support the show, here's a link to our coffee. You can feel free to donate whatever you want. I'm losing my mind. You got to stop.
Sorry.
You got to stop. If you want to support our show, here's a link to our coffee as well. Feel free. We would love to add you to our list of members. And we also post some exclusive content over there, kind of shorter episodes that don't make it into a full like hour-long thing. If you like this video, like and subscribe if you want to see more of this. We post every Wednesday, every single week without missing a single week. That's our schedule. And I think that's all the stuff that we usually say at the end of these episodes. And we'll see you next week.
I'll see you in 2 seconds.